Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you love powerful stories, raw talent, and moments that change lives forever, then you are in exactly the right place. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us until the very end, because today's story is not just about a performance, it is about years of quiet struggle finally being heard by the world. There are moments in television history when time seems to slow down. Moments where a single voice, a single song, or a single decision transforms an ordinary stage into something unforgettable. Britain's Got Talent has seen dancers, magicians, comedians, and singers come and go, but every once in a while, someone steps forward whose journey runs deeper than applause. This is the story of a world-class songwriter who spent years creating hits for others, standing in the shadows, waiting for one chance to step into the light and claim stardom for himself. Long before the bright lights of Britain's Got Talent, before the judges' table and the roaring crowd, this songwriter was living a very different reality. His days were filled with melodies scribbled in notebooks, late nights in small studios, and quiet hopes that one day his own voice would matter just as much as his lyrics. While many people dream of fame, few understand the patience it takes to chase it without recognition. He was not a stranger to success. In fact, the songs he helped create were heard by millions. They climbed charts, played on radios, and filled arenas, yet his name remained largely unknown to the public. He watched other artists step into the spotlight, sing words he had written, and receive awards and praise. And while he was proud of his work, there was always a voice inside him asking a simple question. What if the world heard me too? For years, that question stayed unanswered. The music industry can be unforgiving, especially to those who are told they are better behind the scenes. Friends and colleagues often reminded him that songwriting itself was a dream career. Many people would have been satisfied. But deep down, he knew his story was not complete. He was not just a writer. He was a performer waiting for permission, waiting for courage, waiting for a moment that might never come. Britain's Got Talent became that moment. Deciding to audition was not easy. Standing on that stage meant risking everything. It meant exposing himself not just as a writer, but as an artist. It meant facing judges who had the power to validate or dismantle years of belief in a matter of seconds. It meant performing in front of a live audience and millions watching at home. And perhaps most frightening of all, it meant being truly seen. As he waited backstage, the noise of the crowd filtered through the walls. The atmosphere was electric, yet isolating. He knew that once he walked out, there would be no hiding behind famous voices or studio credits. This time, it would be just him and his song. When his name was called, he stepped forward with calm determination. He introduced himself humbly, sharing that he was a songwriter. The judges listened with curiosity. Songwriter was not a title that usually promised a show-stopping audition. There was polite interest, but also skepticism. After all, Britain's Got Talent had seen countless singers with big dreams. Then came the moment that changed everything. As the first notes of his song filled the theater, something shifted in the room. His voice carried honesty, not perfection. It carried experience, heartache, resilience, and truth. This was not a song designed to impress. It was a song designed to be felt. The lyrics told a story of longing, of standing just outside the spotlight, of watching life pass by while believing in something greater. Every word felt personal, yet universal. The audience grew silent. The judges leaned forward. This was no longer an audition. It was a confession set to music. What made the performance extraordinary was not just the song itself, but the authenticity behind it. This was a man who had lived every line he sang. He was not chasing fame for ego. He was chasing it for closure, for fulfillment, for the right to own his voice. As the song built, so did the emotion in the room. Some audience members wiped away tears. Others sat completely still, afraid to break the moment. The final note lingered in the air, followed by a brief silence that felt endless. Then the theater erupted. The applause was thunderous, not polite, not routine, but genuine and overwhelming. The songwriter stood there, absorbing a reaction he had waited a lifetime to experience. For the first time, the spotlight was truly his. The judges were visibly moved. One spoke about the bravery it takes to step out from behind the scenes. Another praised the songwriting, calling it world-class. They recognized not only the talent, but the journey behind it. This was not someone looking for validation. This was someone who had earned it. When the votes came in, the result felt inevitable. Yes after yes echoed across the stage. But more than the approvals, what mattered was the message. You are enough. Your voice matters. Your time is now. As he left the stage, the weight he had carried for years seemed lighter. Whether he won the competition or not, something fundamental had changed. He had finally allowed himself to be seen, and the world responded. In the days that followed, the performance spread rapidly online. Millions watched and rewatched the audition. Comments poured in from people who saw themselves in his story. Songwriters, artists, dreamers, and anyone who had ever felt overlooked found inspiration in his courage. What made this moment so powerful was its relatability. Not everyone wants to be a pop star, but everyone knows what it feels like to wait for their chance. To wonder if their voice will ever be heard. To question whether stepping forward is worth the risk. This songwriter's audition was not just entertainment. It was a reminder that it is never too late to redefine yourself. That being talented behind the scenes does not mean you belong there forever. And that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is believe in your own story enough to tell it out loud. Britain's Got Talent has always been about more than winning. It is about moments that resonate long after the stage lights fade. This audition joined the ranks of performances that remind us why we watch in the first place. Not for perfection, but for humanity. As the competition continued, expectations grew. People were no longer just watching a contestant. They were watching a journey unfold. Every performance carried the weight of that first audition, and every step forward felt like a victory not just for him, but for countless others who had been waiting in silence. The music industry often celebrates youth and instant success, but this story challenged that narrative. It showed that experience matters, that patience shapes artistry, and that sometimes, the most powerful voices are the ones that have waited the longest. For the songwriter, Britain's Got Talent was more than a platform. It was a turning point. It was proof that his dream was not misplaced. That the years spent writing for others were not wasted, but rather preparation for a moment like this. And for the audience, it was a lesson in perseverance. A reminder to listen more closely. To value the stories behind the talent. To remember that greatness does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly, refining itself, until the right moment arrives. As the season progressed, one thing became clear. Win or lose, this songwriter had already achieved something extraordinary. He had claimed his identity not just as a creator, but as a performer. He had rewritten his own narrative. In a world that often tells us to stay in our lane, his story encourages us to expand it. To step onto unfamiliar stages. To take risks even when success is not guaranteed. So the next time you find yourself holding back, waiting for permission, remember this audition. Remember the songwriter who dared to believe that his voice deserved the same spotlight as his words. Remember that sometimes, the biggest leap is simply stepping forward. If this story inspired you, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe it is ever too late to chase a dream, or do moments like this prove that timing is everything? Thank you for staying with us for part 2 of this incredible journey. If you thought the first audition was powerful, what followed was even more emotional, more challenging, and more revealing. This was no longer just about proving himself. This was about surviving the pressure, the expectations, and the sudden spotlight that comes when the world finally notices you. After the audition aired, life changed almost overnight. Messages flooded in from fans, fellow musicians, and industry insiders. People who had unknowingly sung along to his lyrics for years were now discovering the face and voice behind the words. While the support was overwhelming, it also brought a new kind of fear. Expectations can be heavier than rejection, and now all eyes were on him. Behind the scenes, rehearsals became intense. Britain's Got Talent is not just a talent show, it is a test of endurance. Each round demands something new, something bigger, something that proves the first moment was not luck. For someone who had spent years perfecting songs in private, the pressure to perform repeatedly on live television was immense. There were moments of doubt. Late nights where he questioned whether stepping forward had been the right decision. Whether he was ready to carry his own songs on his shoulders instead of handing them to someone else. Songwriting allows distance. Performing offers nowhere to hide. As the semi-finals approached, the atmosphere shifted. Contestants were no longer just hopefuls. They were competitors. Everyone wanted that place in the final, that chance to stand at the top. The stakes were higher, the criticism sharper, and the margins for error painfully small. When he walked onto the stage for his semi-final performance, the crowd already knew his story. That knowledge brought both comfort and pressure. He chose a song that reflected growth, a piece that showed not just vulnerability, but strength. The lyrics spoke about standing tall after years of waiting, about embracing fear instead of running from it. From the first line, his confidence was different. Not louder, not flashier, but steadier. This was a man who had decided to trust himself. His voice filled the space with control and emotion, each note shaped by experience rather than nerves. The judges' reactions told a story of their own. Where there had once been curiosity, there was now respect. They spoke about how rare it is to see someone evolve so quickly under pressure. They acknowledged the courage it takes to stay authentic when expectations push you toward spectacle. Public voting opened, and the wait was agonizing. Standing backstage, listening as names were called, he felt the familiar uncertainty return. No matter how seasoned you are, judgment never becomes easy. When his name was announced as a finalist, the emotion was visible. Not explosive, but deeply felt. This was another barrier crossed, another quiet dream realized. The final brought a level of intensity unlike anything before. Rehearsals were longer. Media attention increased. Interviews dug deeper into his past, his doubts, his future plans. For the first time, he was being asked not just who he was, but who he wanted to become. Choosing the final performance was one of the hardest decisions he had ever made. It had to represent his journey, his identity, and his purpose. He decided to perform a song that blended hope with honesty, one that acknowledged the long road while celebrating the courage to keep walking. Final night arrived, and the theater buzzed with anticipation. Families, fans, and millions at home waited to see who would claim the title. But for him, winning had already taken on a different meaning. Success was no longer measured only by a trophy, but by the fact that he was standing there at all. As the music began, something remarkable happened. The nerves faded. The noise disappeared. It was just him and the story he needed to tell. Every lyric carried weight. Every note felt intentional. This was not about impressing judges. It was about honoring the journey that led him there. When the performance ended, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Standing ovations filled the theater. The judges praised not only the performance, but the integrity behind it. They spoke about how rare it is to witness someone fully step into themselves on such a public stage. The results came later, but by then, something was already clear. This songwriter had achieved stardom on his own terms. Whether or not he took the top spot, his voice had found its place. After the show, opportunities followed. Record deals were discussed. Collaborations offered. But this time, he was not waiting for permission. He was choosing his path. His story resonated because it was real. It reminded people that success does not follow a single timeline. That standing behind the scenes does not mean you are invisible. And that sometimes, the bravest move is stepping forward when the world least expects it. Britain's Got Talent gave him a stage, but he brought the story. A story of patience, persistence, and believing in yourself even when the spotlight is elsewhere. If this journey moved you, take a moment to reflect on your own. What dream have you been postponing? What voice have you been keeping quiet? Thank you for watching part 2. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring journeys. Until next time, remember, your moment may be closer than you think.